Hello and welcome to the Life After Diets podcast. I'm Sarah Dosanjh, psychotherapist and author of the book I Can't Stop Eating.
And I'm Stephanie Michelle, binge recovery health coach. If you feel out of control around food, we get it because we've been there.
Thank you for joining our conversations about how to make peace with food and feel more comfortable in our bodies.
Now on to this week's episode.
Hi, Steph.
Hey, Sarah.
We've got an exciting episode for people, haven't we?
We do. I'm excited. This is a bit different.
It is a bit different. We have Nicole, who is a member of our recovery community and a podcast listener. And she's come on to share her experiences.
The messy middle.
Yes.
So someone inside of this work who hasn't necessarily come to resolution, and she's here to share what she's going through and what she's honestly feeling and thinking as she's navigating her relationship with food and body image.
And so much of what she shared are things that I think I could speak for both of us, probably we hear a lot.
Yeah.
So I think her story is one that will resonate with a lot of people, and the challenges with trying to embrace giving up dieting.
We do want to give some trigger warnings because there is some mention of weight and also some internalized fat phobia, as well as mention of appetite suppressants.
Yes, and the use of the word overweight, which we generally don't subscribe to.
Without further ado, here's our conversation with Nicole.
Nicole, thank you so much for agreeing to come on the podcast and talk about your experiences and where you're at. And I know you're a little bit nervous, and that is so understandable.
Thank you.
I'm excited about this episode because it's the first time we've had a guest. Well, first of all, we don't have too many guests so far, but when we do have guests, it's usually by way of someone who's an expert in a certain area or someone who's recovered, quote unquote, on the other side of things. And we brought Nicole in, or we asked Nicole to come on because we wanted to talk to someone who can speak to the messy middle of this process and the honest truths about where you are without kind of sugarcoating it or pretending like it's so easy. And we're here to talk about what's hard and what this looks like in that raw form as somebody's moving through it. Because Sarah and I have moved through it, but we talk in retrospect. And I think it's really powerful for people who are inside it to hear from someone else who's going through in real time the thoughts and the feelings that we're having as we are trying to make our way through without knowing necessarily how it turns out. Thank you again, Nicole, for being so vulnerable to do that.
Thank you for having me. I'm quite excited.
Okay. Nicole, do you want to begin by telling us where it started, how far back your struggle with food goes?
Sure. So I was pretty much in grade 1 when it started. I was a normal child before that. My mom had weight struggles, as did her mom. So I can't really pinpoint where it came from or how it began, how my weight gain began. But obviously, being in sort of 1990 and your child's put on a lot of weight, everybody thought the best thing to do would obviously put me on a diet, which I understand with the limited amount of information that they had back then. And that's where it started. So I can vividly remember sitting in a dietitian's office with her asking me what I eat on a daily basis when I was 7 years old. I remember having a certain lunchbox packed, and my sister had a different lunchbox packed. I remember taking my pocket money to school so that I could go to the tuck shop or the vending machine with nobody else knowing. And I'm talking 7 years old. So it's literally been from then, and it's fluctuated. I put on a lot of weight during my primary school years. I got to about grade 9 and I lost a lot of weight. Obviously, early high school, I really was eating very little. I was eating like an apple a day. My hair fell out. It was not a good time. And then I discovered appetite suppressants, which I used to, obviously my mom wouldn't buy for me, but I used to go for a jog to the pharmacy and go and buy them. And I took those for years really. And they are what worked in a way for me for a long time. And then my mom passed away and I had to stop taking them because I had to take some other antidepressants, and I put on a lot of weight, 25 kilos. My eating was totally out of whack. Look, there was obviously a lot of emotional stuff going on, and there was mourning, and there was also having been off the appetite suppressants for the first time in like 6 years. So not a great time. Managed to get things under control. I've done every kind of diet. I've done Weight Watchers, I've done dietitians, I remember my mom and I going to buy weird earrings when I was like, if you put them here, and that was supposed to stop you inside, they just hurt. I think the rule was just so that you're in so much pain, you're not hungry. So I've done everything. I've done them all. When I was just married, my husband and I have been together for years and years, so you can see all the different fluctuations. And then I fell pregnant with my first child, and that was 9 months of last suffer eating, because I've always only been on a diet or not on a diet. There's those two things. And if I'm pregnant, I'm not on a diet. And it was very, very difficult for me. I remember being about 16 weeks pregnant, which is only about halfway, and less than halfway, and knowing that I'd already kept the weight that you should put on for your whole pregnancy. And I was hysterical. I didn't know what to do with myself, but it was anyway. So that was that. Then I lost the weight drastically after I had her, and then I fell pregnant again. It was a little bit better the second time, but yeah, it was actually okay the second time. And then I lost the weight again. And I've actually been able to maintain, obviously, I would have always, prior to this, always wanted to be thinner, but I've managed to maintain a pretty acceptable weight, to me, acceptable weight for a long time. I started struggling again about 2 years ago, and I went on to appetite suppressants again, and that worked very well for me, except I started having some weird side effects. So then I had to stop taking them. And then I discovered all of this work. And while it makes so much sense to me, and it's almost one of those epiphany type things that I can't unknow or unhear. So logically, it makes sense to me. But all I can see is somebody that's put in a lot of weight, and I'm at a weight that I'm not okay with. Or historically, I have not been okay with. And I'm just muddling my way through there. And as much as I will wake up every morning thinking, okay, maybe I should just diet, because this is just not going to work. You're never going to be happy like this. Maybe I should just diet. And then obviously that ends up in binge eating. And I feel like it's almost like a cat has 9 lives. Maybe a person like me has 400 diets that they can do. And I've kept that. And now I can't diet, but I also don't want to be fat. And so I'm not in a great space.
What happened a year ago that made you decide, I'm not going to keep trying to diet anymore? You said a year ago you tried to do something differently.
I had been on the appetite suppressants, and then actually my vision started getting really strange. So I went to the doctor, and she found out that I'd been taking them for much longer than you're supposed to. So I had to go off of them. And slowly but surely, I think I just got tired of the struggle, and I'm desperate for the history not to repeat itself with my daughter. My mother had the same issue. She died really young. Her mother had the same issue, and I'm just so scared that she ends up in the same pattern of this. So yeah, I'm trying to fix it, but I'm not there yet.
Okay. I want to just note something you said that struck me. You said, I'm at a weight that's not acceptable. And then you corrected yourself and you said, well, historically, it's not been acceptable. It was just an interesting way of, go
You
ahead.
know why? Because if I'm going to be honest, it's not acceptable to me.
Okay.
But I'm trying very hard to think the way we should think with intuitive eating, and to be recovered in those kind of things. But I can't do it. We were away this weekend, and it was my father-in-law's 70th birthday. There were a lot of photos taken, and I actually can't deal with the photographs. It ruined the rest of the weekend for me. It's not okay. I'm now not looking at photographs at the moment. Since the weekend, we went out last night, there were photographs. I can't actually even open them because it's just so triggering. And I just don't like how I look. But I also feel like I'm always complaining about my weight. So I feel like I've been bitching about it for 30 years. So that's why I try and use the correct terminology. But at the end of the day, I just don't know if I can ever get past it.
You said something that I hear people say all the time, and that is, I know I shouldn't think this way. I know I should think, if I'm going to be a good intuitive eater, I should think the way, like, I should be able to accept this body. If you took should out of it, where does that leave you with that thought about whether your body is acceptable to you now or not? There's no should about it. Doesn't have to be.
If I'm 100% honest, it's just not acceptable. I'm just not there yet where I can. And I'm trying to remind myself that it's the here and now body, and it's not forever. And what I thought was fat, but my thinner body was something that was almost artificially maintained. So, and I know that. Logically, I know that. But I've got a wardrobe full of clothing I can't wear. I've got photographs I can't look at. I can't walk past the mirror. It's not, I don't know how to get past it. I really don't know how to accept it.
What's the emotion that comes up when you admit that, when you say, it's not acceptable to me? Looking at this picture makes me feel X.
I feel that I'm a fat girl who lost weight and now she lost control again.
And that
That's
makes me feel what?
I feel shame and guilt. And I feel like that's what other people are thinking. Like we went down on holiday to a different place this weekend. It was a different province. It's not where we live. So I saw a lot of family that I haven't seen since pre-COVID. And I felt so unbelievably self-conscious. They are also, it's my husband's family, but they are very weight conscious. So it was incredibly difficult for me. And I remember when it wasn't me, seeing other people that have put on weight, and I pity them. And now I think, well, and now I know that people are pitying me. I was so proud for so long that I managed to, through whichever means, maintain a respectable weight. But now I feel as that I've stopped being able to do that. But I also can't go back to doing it. So I'm not sure what, what the road forward is.
Mhm. You said you know that people are pitying you, and you said that was because you would pity other people.
Yes. And I know that not everybody sees it like that, but I do know for a fact that my mother-in-law does. She's lovely. I love her, but it is just something that's very big in her life. It's an issue for her as well. And I know that it'll be the first thing she'll comment on. She sees somebody and she's like, have you seen their round face? Have you seen their tight pants? So I know that that's what she's thinking. It's, there's no way that she's not thinking that. So with her, it's probably not even pity. It's probably just like, what the hell happened?
Is she part of your audience? So when we have like people, people will think. Usually this is a
Yes,
fairly small amount of actual people.
Yes.
Without those people, without that specific audience, would there be more room for you to find more comfort in your here and now body if your people weren't necessarily witnessing it?
If I'm not in front of a mirror and I'm not looking at a photograph, I actually feel like I'm okay. I still look after myself. I can feel okay about it. But it's when I look in the mirror or I see a photograph. The photographs are particularly bad at the moment. So I think also it's knowing what my weight is. Prior to this, I didn't know. So I could that doesn't mean that I could make peace with it. I could almost lie to myself and not know that it was as much as it is. But now I know. Cat's out of the bag. There's nothing I can do about it. And yeah, so I think without the audience, perhaps it might be a bit easier. But then there's also part of me that thinks if I don't have this audience, that's what's stopping me. If I've put on 12, 14 kilos in the last year, what's stopping me from doing it again in the next year and the year after that?
This theme of being out of control and feeling like if it started, it might not stop. If you knew that this had bounds and that it would stop and settle somewhere, would it then feel easier to wrap your head around?
I think perhaps if I knew it would stop right now at this way.
Yeah.
But I don't think I can handle even a little bit more. And I'm a person that likes to be in control. I think a lot of this is a control thing. I'm a very routine driven person. I like to know what's happening. I like to know what's coming. And that's actually something that we unpacked with my coach recently, is that I was complaining that I think I'm just addicted to food and I just can't do this. And I'm like an addict of anything else, but mine is food. And I think she made a lot of sense when she said, I'm actually not addicted to food. I'm addicted to dieting because it's all I actually know.
Yeah.
And I almost need someone or something to be telling me what to eat because I can't make the decision. I still, after a year of trying to practice this, I have no idea what full is. I know that a piece of chicken the size of your palm and a quarter of your plate with carbs and half of your plate with veggies. I know what a respectable amount of food is, but I cannot find where my brain tells me that or where my stomach tells me, actually. My brain can tell me all the different diets. I know how many points it was with Weight Watchers, how many carb portions it was without a diet. I know all of that. But I know what I think if I'm sitting at a table with other people, what they might think is a respectable amount for me to eat. I know that, but I can't tell you if I'm full before I'm over full. I just can't get there.
Mhm. Well, I'm guessing there's a few more shoulds in there. When you're thinking what a respectable amount is, that's what you're believing in that moment you should eat. So anything in you that's telling you to eat more than that can feel pretty frightening, right? It can feel like loss of control, especially when you have got a history of feeling out of control around food.
Sure.
It's like too much knowledge or apparent knowledge that's out there, it destroys this ability to build up some
Sure.
self-trust.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to comment on something you said earlier about your body. You said, when I'm sitting in a room or when it's just me, I feel okay. I feel okay in my body. But there's two experiences we have of our bodies. We have our embodied experience of our body, which is how we experience it from the inside. And it sounds like that is okay-ish, like how you feel in your body. But the minute you look at it from the outside, a photo, knowing a number, then you become the objectifier of your body. So when we're talking about what we accept and body acceptance, it may be for some people, and not everybody's body feels comfortable. Some people have got, health and pain and all kinds of things they might be dealing with. But would it feel true for you that your embodied experience of your body is acceptable, but the external, the objectification part of your experience of your body is the bit that doesn't feel possible to accept at this time?
Yeah, that makes sense. I've never thought of the two being separate, but yes, that makes sense. There are obviously days where I feel a bit more bloated and if my clothes are too small, if I'm forcing myself to wear my old wardrobe, then I feel physically uncomfortable, which then obviously has a whole lot of emotions tied to it. But then being comfortable in a bigger size pair of jeans is also very disconcerting because what's to say that this will be the last bigger size? But yes, definitely. I think if I can, I didn't know that there was embodied versus, what did you say? Embodied versus.
Objectification,
Okay.
seeing the body as an object.
Okay.
Can I offer you something, Nicole? Under this viewpoint, another way of looking at this is like first person versus third person. So when you're in the embodied self, it's the first person. You're living from the inside out. You're acting on the world versus the objectified version of yourself, which is like looking at yourself from third person, how you appear. And I am not taking from anyone that the objectified version of ourselves is important in our culture, right? And it is going to have some kind of meaning to us. I think it's remiss to say, just live in first person all the time and forget about the objectified version of yourself, because it's just, we can't do that in the culture we live in. But if you're saying that, like, I've never thought about it this way, can you offer yourself the opportunity to sometimes recognize that you sometimes are able to live in first person, and when you do, to hold it and to prime your brain to recognize that it can. And that doesn't mean that there's times where when you look at a photo and move right into third person, that's not going to be a large amount of distress, and you can have it. That's yours, and no one's trying to talk you out of it. I think denying it and I shouldn't feel this way about this photo is part of the resistance. You can have that, but there's also times perhaps where you are inside of yourself and laughing or playing with your kids or just for a walk or just a moment where you're sitting on the couch and you're feeling like, I'm inside of this moment. I'm embodied right now and I feel okay. And that's mine too. Because I think that that's a way in to understanding that there's different states of being, and sometimes it feels awful and sometimes it feels okay. And that's all right. You can have, we can sort of grow and cultivate and nurture the times that do feel okay and give that to ourselves. It's like, you know what? I have some peace in myself right now. It's not 100% of the time that I feel like I'm wrong. There's some times where things feel all right. And I think that's a good place to start.
Makes sense. Yeah. That's a good, like to say, a good place to start. Definitely.
I just want to appreciate your honesty for saying this body feels unacceptable to me and not trying to sugarcoat that, because that's what we hope for by bringing you on, is that you could talk about it. Actually, no, this is how I'm feeling, because I think a lot of people will be feeling something similar. They're trying to soak in these non-diet, body accepting messages and then feeling like it's another thing they're failing at. I failed at dieting and now I'm failing at.
That's exactly. I feel like such a fraud saying that I'm trying to do this. And then I'm following all these accounts on social media and I'm doing all this reading about body positivity. And I'm seeing all these people in bigger bodies that are fact. I'm envious of it, that they can be so comfortable with themselves, but I'm just not there. And yes, it's exactly that. I feel like I've failed at it. So that's where I am. I feel like I'm failing at intuitive eating and body positivity, but I've also failed at dieting, which is something that I had for so many years. I feel like I'd gotten past that because everything was very up and down during school, but I got out of it. And prior to other than the pregnancies, I had it pretty much under control. And now I don't have it under control. at all.
So, starting in the place of where I am at the moment, it feels like I cannot accept this body. Can you think of a reason why it would benefit you if you could?
Well, I suppose it would be less distressing.
Mhm.
It would be less emotionally exhausting, because it is exhausting. It's as this whole having an issue with food is exhausting. All facets of it is exhausting, but this is also very tiring. It's tiring looking in every wardrobe. It's sorry, in every mirror. It's tiring when I'm driving and I'm looking at the seatbelt and I'm trying to judge if my stomach is bigger through the seatbelt than it was yesterday. It takes up so much of my mental energy and time that I think there could be so much more to life with not having, and that was my main issue, is that I felt like I was obsessed with food previously. And that was my main driver for trying this, but I'm just as obsessed. It's just now I'm obsessed and fat. Sorry, I know that that's not the right thing to say, but that's just how I feel.
Good. Good. I say good, not good that you feel like that, but good that you're just saying how you feel.
Yeah.
That judgment that keeps coming in.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you a question. I just want you to be as honest because your brain's going to go that there's a right answer to this. So I just want you to pay attention what happens when I ask it. If I could wave a magic wand and just get rid of all food obsession. You said you didn't know what fullness was. You would just be able to eat. It would be easy. You'd feel in regulation and everything would just level out. You'd be freed up with all this mental energy. And the price to pay is that you could never, ever lose a single pound of weight from where you are today. Would you take it?
I don't think so.
Mhm.
Not at this stage.
Where did you feel it?
Uh, how do you mean?
Did you feel it in your body when I asked that question? That resistance, did you feel it?
Oh yes, I did. I did. I felt it around my stomach. I felt I felt it mentally. I felt it that I can't. I had. I think that I can't even never be in a photograph again for the rest of my life. Yeah, I don't think that weight gain could be such a heavy price to pay, or it would be worth it, or this body would be worth it for being free of the obsession.
Yeah, yeah.
Not yet.
If you want connection and support around any of the topics we talk about on the podcast, we would love for you to join our membership community.
Members have access to monthly online support groups, a private Facebook group, live episode recordings, and member-only Q&As.
If you would like to join us, please head to lifeafterdietspodcast.com/community.
Now let's get back to the episode. What do you see or what do you feel in this body? What is the judgment that comes up about yourself, or what does the weight mean to you as far as a reflection of you? What does it what do you not get from it, or what does it bring you that you don't want? Can you tell me more about what having this body means?
I think a lot of it feels. I feel a lot of failure around it because it's something that I was previously able to control, and I feel it's something where you're having a hard time, because everybody has hard times do that up. But this is such a obvious thing that everybody can see, and I feel that if I were to even broach the subject of intuitive eating with anybody, they would think, "Oh, well, shame she thinks she's doing this," but actually, she's just gotten really fat, and because the whole world is still working on where we were years ago, and yeah, I feel like I can't convince people. I don't actually even know, when I try and speak about it, it's very hard for me to articulate exactly what intuitive eating is, especially coming from the point that everybody can see that I've drastically put on weight in the last year, which is that, and that's since I've been doing it. So if you had spoken to me about this 2 years ago and said, "You're a bit nuts. This is not working for you," like, sorry. Sounds great that you can eat what you want whenever you want to eat. That's not really working, is it?
Well, do you? What is your relationship with food? What does intuitive eating mean to you?
I had hoped, you know what, like if you had asked me this 3 months ago, I would have felt that I'd found I was free of a lot of the guilt of having overeaten. I could go to a restaurant without making the decision of what I would eat from the menu prior, so that I didn't give myself that option of deciding then, when I was perhaps a little bit hungrier or I saw somebody else's plate of food, then I knew that I would order the wrong thing. So I feel like I've enjoyed all of those things of trying to be normal and eat like intuitive eaters or people without issues with food. But I did that. And now look where I am. I don't think I did it right. I think oh, maybe I did. I don't know. Maybe I'm supposed to be one of those people that are in a bigger body. I don't know. Maybe I am. And I've just artificially managed that for so long. I don't know.
So you feel like, well, you said up until 3 months ago, which is interesting. So those first 9 months, I think, you feel like you were more or less eating intuitively. So there wasn't binging or restricting. It felt easier with food aside
It
from
definitely felt easier with food,
Okay.
other than the fact that things stopped fitting. But I didn't know how bad it was, and I kept trying to convince myself it wasn't that bad, and it was just, a little bit of gain that steady itself out or whatever. But now that I'm obviously aware of the amount, and I'm just struggling to, and now that I've tried to diet again, I think the fact that I thought I could always go back to that was a nice fail safe for me. It's like, okay, cool. If it doesn't work, you can just go back. But now I've done that, and it has gone catastrophically wrong. I'm like, previously I could diet for months and then perhaps have the odd binge, or the obsessive thoughts, but I could manage it. Now I can't even go a day or 2 days without a massive binge and falling off the wagon completely. So I feel like my options of dieting are no longer there. So now I can't even go back to who I was. I've made too much progress, but too little progress.
Mm. When you talk about being 7 years old and having this start at that point, what's coming through is such a like this feeling of failure and the importance of what people think, especially where intuitive eating might be something that like the point of is to land in an acceptable body, right? Rather than necessarily having that peace with food, which I understand that now it's sort of shifted again. I'm curious also to learn why. What was that moment of where it went from feeling like food is easy to now I feel compelled to diet, and now I'm restricting and binging again. Do you even remember a time before you were 7 when your worth or your sense of self-acceptance didn't come from a number on
I don't remember not dieting. I don't remember. I can tell you at any age throughout my life what I weighed.
Yeah.
I can't, there is no, I can't, I actually wrote it down when I was pithing earlier. I can't disentangle my worth from my weight. I just can't do it. I don't know. I can't do it yet.
Okay.
Can
That
you
makes a
do it
lot of
here?
sense.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Sarah.
No. Can you do that here and now with us? Does your weight matter having this conversation with us?
So how do you mean?
So you said, I can't disentangle my worth from my weight. So your value to talking to us, having this conversation with us, does your weight come into it? Like your value in this conversation?
No. And logically, I know that. I know that. I know that I am much more than my weight. I know that I'm a good mom and that I contribute well. And that, I know that I know these things logically.
Then can we reframe it as a part of you can't disentangle your worth from your weight? When you say I can't, you make it your identity. Was I clear or not? Did I?
No, this makes sense. No, you didn't freeze, but I got it. I think you make sense. Yeah, it's definitely a part of me. I don't feel like I'm a worthless person. Like I've got nothing to add to the world. I feel like I'm okay there. I genuinely say I'm not a person with low self-esteem or low self-confidence. I can, though, remember when I had my weight under control because that was more recent and it was for longer periods of time. But I've been overweight, but years ago.
When you say that you had a past of being overweight, what was your relationship with yourself like at that time?
I can't really remember as a young child. I remember being overweight. I remember being mocked at school. I remember being weighed in front of the whole class and having my weight written on the board. I remember those things. And I remember my parents restricting my food. But I don't ever remember the self-loathing that I would say I've had as an adult or even as a teenager. Back then, it was more like they're telling me not to do it, but I've got some money, I'll go to the tuck shop, or I will, if no one's looking, or it was almost like a me versus them thing. Whereas now it's a me versus me thing.
Yeah. That energy has gotten rerouted.
Yes. Yeah.
Nicole, what would you want the next few weeks to look like? You've talked about having 9 months of feeling okay, but it's weight gain that's been really uncomfortable, the attempts to control again, falling, use your words, falling off the wagon and binging again. The next few weeks, what would you want them to look like?
I think I'd like just to have a bit of peace, sort of emotional and mental peace. even if it meant, I think a lot of it is tied with, if I carried on like this, would I continue to get bigger? So if, like you asked earlier, Stephanie, whether we could guarantee that I wouldn't go any further, that I think I would feel, I wouldn't love it, but I could feel a bit more at peace and there wouldn't be this obsession. Because as much as I'd like to say that I'm not wanting to lose weight, as much as I'd like to say I'm not dieting, there's, unfortunately, with every meal, it's there. So if I'm not hungry and I think to myself, you know what, I'm not going to eat because I'm not hungry, legitimately not physically hungry, there is still a part of me that says, cool, well done. That's cool. That's one less meal that's not going to be there. And I can't get past the fact that I can't self-congratulate when it's one less meal, or if I stop halfway through, or I dish up slightly less, or I make a healthier choice. I'm still like, the end game is still the weight loss.
Yeah. Do you identify with that voice entirely? I like this concept we've been talking about of giving yourself more room to have different sides rather than an all-encompassing identity. Is there a part of you that stops and says, "Oh, I hear myself doing that. I hear myself feeling I would almost reframe it as I find safety in that. Like that's something that makes you feel safe, and understandably so, because it sounds like if you were having your weight written on the board and, you've never had a template of what it means to have weight on your body in a safe place, right? Like
I
it's
don't, I haven't. I
yeah.
haven't. Yes.
So of course, I mean, your body's freaking out. It's in your mind, like, oh, we can't go there. Like that means shame. That means disapproval. We do not belong. That is not a good place to be. It's interesting that you're saying now, if you wouldn't be happy if it stopped now, but it's like there's some version of you that understands that the world hasn't come crashing down and that you still have people that love you and that you're still showing up as a mom. And somehow life is going on in this, what appears to be some kind of safe way now, which is a dissonance from what your mind might have believed. But the thought of gaining more weight is like, no, that will be the unsafe territory. That's reminding me. And I think safety is such a core issue in this. And that I wonder if there's a part of you that when you hear yourself saying these things to yourself that can separate it from identifying with that and saying, yeah, good job. Saying, oh, that's the part of me that feels so unsafe with gaining weight, or that's the part of me that's just terrified and it's just trying to protect me. And by naming it, you sort of you take that degree of separation from it so that you can say, I see what's going on. I'm just trying to feel safe inside. Versus, yes, I'm really identifying with my weight.
Okay, that's good, because what I have found from the whole sort of thinking of intuitive eating is the curiosity point of view. So if I feel like I want to eat more of anything, but like frantically more, not just I'm really enjoying this meal and I want more, I'm sometimes able, I'd say about 70% of the time, I'm able to try and identify, or at least to pause and think, what could this be? Could this be that it's been a really hectic morning, the kids have finally left the house, work has calmed down, and now I see I'm going to relax and I deserve to eat something. And then taking a step back and seeing that that's an old pattern, that's a deserving thing. I'm rewarding myself with food. So it's the curiosity thing, but I've never thought of identifying the part of me that is vying for the weight loss. So I'm very open to that, because it's sometimes, I know that I can sometimes think, I can wake up today and I can feel absolutely awful about my body and nothing works, and this is never going to work, and this is unacceptable. And I can rationally say to myself, I don't always believe it, but I can take a minute to say, you know what, you haven't put on 20 kilos or whatever the measurement is that you guys use since last night. And last night you felt all right. You didn't feel fantastic, but you felt okay. You haven't drastically put on weight since then. So realistically, this is something in your mind that's doing this, or it's perhaps a little hormonal, or there's something else at play here. It's not drastic weight gain in the last 12 hours. So that's a practice that I need to keep practicing, essentially.
I just want to speak to that fear of the future. I recall that so strongly. When my binge eating started, I gained weight rapidly. And I remember feeling so out of control that I honestly thought I was capable of ending up bedbound as a result of not being able to stop eating. Like, it sounds hyperbolic now, but that was the very real fear at that time. And I heard it right from the start, this fear of the future. And so one of the things that And I appreciate it's a little bit easier said than done, but really bringing it to one day at a time. Any decision you make, whether the decision is to diet, whether the decision is not to diet, whether it's to do intuitive eating, whatever it might be, no decision we make about our bodies in this way has to be a forever decision. So I think there's something as well around occasionally, like the whole intuitive eating thing can sound a bit vague. And it almost sounded like your brain was getting a little bit scrambled with it at times. It sounded a bit like you were saying intuitive eating is just about not dieting and trying to eat normally. But I don't know what normal is. And I've got this idea in my head about what a respectable portion is. And then that was
Sure. It's all jumbled, yes.
so bringing it down to just one or two very specific things that you're drawn to that are useful to you. So it could be so some of the intentions that I would do on a daily basis, and they might vary a bit on day to day. I might say to myself first thing in the morning, okay, today I am not trying to eat in any kind of deficit. And that was the word I would use. I'm not trying to eat in any kind of deficit. And I am going to focus on choosing foods that I really enjoy eating, and I'm going to really try to enjoy eating them. And I'd record myself saying it, I would write it down sometimes, and I would keep coming back to it and remembering it day by day. It wasn't a case of what would happen, like, in the chaos of the binging is I'd binge, and then afterwards I'd go, "Right, this is what I'm gonna do from this point forward. I'm just gonna be different tomorrow." It doesn't work like that. I think there's something about that self-remembering and coming back, and rather than trying to jump in and do this encompassing intuitive eating thing when you've not been allowed to be intuitive since you were 7 years old. Just finding one or two little things that you think are going to benefit you.
Makes sense. No, I think that's I could do that. I can try that.
Yeah.
Do you feel connected to an emotion right now, or conflicting emotions or multiple emotions that you feel somewhere in your body?
Yes, I feel a big part of where I struggle is with the guilt of being so unhappy. When I know that I'm able to do things, I'm not bedbound. I don't struggle to walk. I am healthy. My kids are healthy. Like I've got so much to be grateful for. And I feel guilty sometimes that I can be so fixated on something like this. And this is something that at the moment is so big that it's literally every waking second it consumes me. So, and I feel that it's almost ridiculous how much time and energy and emotional well-being I pour into such a small facet of life. That's one part of it. That's like a logical way of thinking about it. But then the rest of the time, I can't physically turn that off. So it's all I can think about. It's literally all I can be working and I can be doing something really intricate and I can look down and say, like, how do my legs look? Like put your stomach in. There's no one else around. There's not even another person at home. Even now, I am making sure that I'm not looking at my camera. I'm just looking at you guys. And I don't remember it ever actually being this bad. That's why it's such a difficult spot at the moment and I think because I can't see an easy way out. None of my previous things are going to work.
Can I just comment on this idea of being happy? You said you feel bad, like, about not being happy. You should be happy. I don't think happy is something that we are. Like, happy is just another feeling, like other feelings that we might have. It's just an experience. And this idea that we're supposed to be happy, I think creates more unhappiness because we feel like we're not,
Pressing a button.
yeah,
True.
we're not being what we think we're supposed to be, that somehow the goal of life is to find happiness or be happy. I do think there's something to be said about experiencing it more often, for sure. But to put this pressure that it's something you're supposed to just be because of your life circumstances, I think takes you even further away from it.
Yes, I think you're right.
I also feel really compelled to say, like, to have permission to, I know Sarah doesn't love the word, but to have permission to accept all of this. So to feel like, I feel guilt or I feel happy about the fact that, I skipped this meal. I'll be like, okay, I'm noticing that. And this is taking up a lot of my mental space is different than saying this is taking up too much of my mental space. Like just to say it is. Yeah, it is. I don't, I have so many things to be grateful for, and I'm really encumbered by this. And that is just true, because I almost picture that you've got something that's always like, no, don't say that. Don't do that. Don't feel that. No, this way. And it's like, you never just can be like, look, this is just how I'm feeling. And this is how it is right now. And that's just true. It's just what it is. And how much space would it give you to say that is what I'm going through right now, and I don't have to feel guilty about it. It's just true for me right now. Because there's so many of these shoulds on top of what already is a baseline of shoulds. Everything you're explaining is, I think there's reasons for it. I don't think any of it's pathological or bad character or unnecessary or vanity or anything like that. It feels like there's a lot of reasons why you're in the space that you're in right now. It makes sense. Maybe you might feel a little free to just be here and just be like, oh, yes, this is my feeling.
That's not much more freeing than what it currently is. Yes, I think that's a very good point. Definitely something I can practice.
Yeah. And it didn't start with you. I was thinking, having lost your mum, like this was a big part of something the two of you bonded over. Like it was really important to her.
Absolutely.
Really
What?
important to you. She's not here, and there can be this sense of like, this is my task. This is what I'm supposed to wrap this all up. I should get to thinness. I should get to acceptable body.
Absolutely. And I often have that thought. I often think, when my mom was this age with children, the age that my kids are, she'd put on way more weight than I had. So maybe I am that little bit more successful than what she is. That I've managed to stop at that little bit more.
So when you catch beliefs like you're smaller than your mum was at her time when she was at the same point in life as you, so that makes you a bit more successful, right? This association of weight loss and size with success is not a right or wrong belief. But when we catch a belief like that, we go, okay, I know this belief was taught to me. It didn't start with me. Is this belief serving me? I think never make it about right or wrong. I think that is the most unhelpful thing we can do to ourselves. But I think that's where the gentle questioning comes in, and to challenge ourselves with that level of, that's the care, that's the curiosity part, to go, I have this belief. What this belief does is it compounds my sense of worth being tied to weight loss and weight gain. And what that belief does is takes me, do you see what I mean? And you can follow that tunnel down and just go, okay, It's not even about you can just change it or just get rid of it. But when you recognize it's not serving you and you keep coming back to that place rather than going, I shouldn't believe it, and going in and out of believing it.
And I like that it doesn't serve me. I think that's a very useful way to look at it. Because it obviously it doesn't serve me, but telling myself that it's wrong doesn't make me stop doing it. So, it's just, I think it was on one of your podcasts as well, months ago, that I couldn't quite work out how to differentiate a binge from just normally eating too much because you're enjoying your meal. And I can't remember which of you said it, but it was something of, is what I'm doing, is this a peaceful decision to eat this? And that was such a big thing for me, because it's some way that you can differentiate. It takes my trying to guess whether I'm hungry or full out of it, because I can't work that out. It's just, do I feel peaceful about this, or do I feel like it's frenzied and I must do it in the shortest space of time? And that I found very useful. And now does this serve me? I think that's definitely something I can come back to, because and in many things, many different, is standing in front of the mirror, looking at myself 100 times before I leave the door. Is that serving me? Is it going to change anything? And not feeling bad about feeling like that, which I think is quite important.
Yeah, agreed. Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for being vulnerable.
Yeah, sorry, I hope that's what you wanted, because I feel like you've just kind of coached me the whole time, and I'm not sure if that's what you were aiming for. But I really appreciate it. I just hope it's what you were looking for.
Yes. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. I want to thank you for being so honest and showing up. I know this must be a little bit nerve-wracking to spill it all out here.
Yeah. It helps that I'm just looking at you guys. I'm just not thinking about where it's going after that. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ladies. And I'm a big fan of your podcast, so thank you very much.